really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Trust.
He's pretty
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.
We are back on the Jumbo Set podcast. It is Wednesday, my dudes, March 5th, 2025. My name is Jake Louque, and I'm joined by Spenny Spring. We're back here. We're ready to talk some Ravens after a nice month off. We did our little, kind of post-mortem podcast after the playoff loss. We were in different states of being and different states of geography, quite literally, after that loss. Things were fragmented and fractured, and an unceremonious ending to the season, as has become tradition with this podcast, but that's okay. I think we kind of covered all of that back then. We've talked a little bit of some unsavory news around this team. We have talked not enough, I think, about some of the funny news surrounding this team and, former Pro Bowl wide receivers and marching bands and things of that nature. We have sufficiently let a lot of that stuff play out. I think we're back. We're ready to talk about it all. We're ready to talk some combine, ready to talk some trades that are going on around the NFL that have been speculated to go on around the NFL. But Spenny, I'll ask first, as we were presented here by Jimmy's Famous Seafood. How are you doing, my friend? You've been jet setting in and around this great country of ours, doing God knows what, and I'm not even going to ask. But how's it been going, my friend?
Yeah, I was traveling a good bit and got down to New Orleans for a little. Was in South Florida. I am now sick. Might have to take some coughing breaks. So throughout this episode, so you might hear some random pauses. I hit the cough button here, but yeah, I got a round of golf in on Saturday. It was 40-mile-an-hour winds. I hit a short iron on a short par 3, and I think the ball was in the air for 8 seconds, just hovering in the air. It was quite spectacular. So ready for some warm weather. I need to move out of the state. I can't take it anymore. I forget how terrible it is until spring is here, and I'm like, oh my God.
This has been a particularly vicious winter. I'm going to throw that one out there. This feels like the kind of winters we grew up. This is the winter your older brother grew up with. This is not this soft Gen Z climate change, 60-degree days every couple of weeks. This was a real winter for sure, and I'm ready. I'm very glad that it's over too.
Agreed. It was tough. There's been a lot of sickness going around, flu, all that stuff. Stay healthy out there, folks. Eat an apple. But yeah, I've got a little to myself right now, and I'm trying to fight that off. So good golf tournaments coming up this weekend, next weekend. Not too long after that, we get the Masters. So that's all good and dandy. Full swing was fun to watch. Golf very steadily creeping up in my interests towards NFL, like very, very strongly, steadily creeping up.
I was going to say, I feel like I've maybe rubbed off on you a little bit too much, almost.
Yeah, I was balls deep in the Cognizant Classic. Jake PXG, former bouncer Knapp, dogged me raw in at the end of that tournament with his quad on a par 3, trying to hit out of the water. Was mega tough scene there, but yeah, I've been loving it, loving full swing, loving what's going on. I am a big fan there. So
you're kind of hit or miss with your gaming, but we got to get you on this PGA 2K25. I feel like it would infuriate you, and then you would master it, and you would be addicted to it.
I play a golf game on my phone that I've spent hundreds of dollars on, probably. That is wonderful, but I don't have a console at this point. WGT Golf, add me on there. You can join my clubhouse, join my country club, and we DM me if you want to join my country club on WGT Golf. I've got a 6 set. It's pretty badass, pretty tasty cuts on there. So hit me up on that one. If you want to get on the old sex box with Jake, that's fine, but I'm a mobile guy now. So yeah, I'm excited for the draft. Combine came and went, all that good stuff. I feel rejuvenated football wise. New chapter next season. Spring has sprung. Daylight savings coming up. All that good shit. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Having some issues with my car right now, which we don't have to get into on air. That is quite annoying. But yeah, hopefully I can get that resolved with minimal issue, but we'll see about that. Yeah, other than that, kind of same thing as you. I actually played a quick 18 out at Forest Park on Saturday. Nobody out there. Weather was great, and that was a lot of fun. So looking forward to the spring as well. Didn't follow a ton of the combine here, so I'm excited for you to educate me on that. That's something that I've liked to have on in the background, but things have been a little busy at work lately, so I wasn't able to kind of have my kind of NFL Network feed up and follow along as all the goings on go on out there in Indy. And, I was following it a little bit on the Everything app. I've been kind of dialing back my Everything app usage recently, so I wasn't able to follow along with all that much stuff. I was quite tickled by the Andrew Schultz, Ian Rappaport showdown confrontation that took place in Starbucks. So that was fun to following some of the comments from the Ravens officials and things like that. You don't really get a ton from those as far as like tangible information, but it is always fun to follow, and maybe you get an idea of which way the wind is blowing with a contract or all that kind of stuff. But the combine's interesting because stuff really tends to go on behind closed doors, and you hear about it through the sparrows, like your Rappaports, like your Schultz and your Shefties and all that kind of stuff. And some of the interviews that you get from the content creators that go out there are always good to follow as well. But yeah, wasn't quite as dialed in on it this year, but I don't know. I think it leaves my plate a little remaining full for free agency. I didn't totally just blow my load, and I'm kind of excited to dribble in a little intravenous drip of the offseason here as we go forward.
Yeah, certainly. A lot of opt-outs, a lot of incomplete testing, and I'm just going to throw this out there. A lot of the 10 RAS relative athletic scores floating around, a lot of high relative athletic scores. If you're a certain position, like if you're an edge rusher and you don't do agilities, I'm not counting that as a 10. Shamar Stewart put some insane freak numbers up, 40, jumping, his explosives, all that stuff, but didn't do 3-cone, didn't do short shuttle. So incomplete. That's becoming a little bit too common practice. Come on, get out there and compete a little bit. I get maybe, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter's got the foot and some of these top guys, but a lot of opt-outs here. We can get into guys, things like that, but I thought that was kind of the overall theme. It's cool that miles per hour, the actual top speed, Next Gen Stats is releasing to the public now. So you can actually filter even. If you go to NFL.com/combine/IQ, you can sort GPS speed instead of the 40 itself, where we saw two players, Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky and Isaiah Bond out of Texas, both hit over 24 miles per hour. Absolutely burning. Matthew Golden turned some heads out of Texas, the wide receiver, with a 4.29. He was a little bit below. He had a really great 10-yard split, which set him up for success there. So a lot more data becoming available at the same time while players are starting to opt out a little. Nick Emamwori out of South Carolina, your boy Jake, he had a really strong showing. Ty Felton out of Maryland had a really strong showing. Travion Henderson was a standout. Jahdae Barron put up some good numbers for what he looks like. Jalen Knoll. A bunch of receivers, running backs look pretty good. Pretty unspectacular edge group, I'd say. I mentioned Shamar Stewart put up 40 inches, 4.59. He's 260-something. Donovan Izuraku, he had a really nice showing, long arms. He did agilities. He had a sub-7 3-cone. He came in at 6'2.5", 250, 34-inch arms. Vertical jump, good. Broad jump, good. He fits into that bucket of 35-plus inch vert, 9-10 on the broad jump, and sub-7 3-cone that a lot of really productive pass rushers have fallen into. So he served himself pretty well there. Luther Burden had a good weekend or week. Alec Ayomanor had a great weekend. Tons and tons. Tate Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia, he had himself a day. One of the best combine performances. He had a mullet flowing in the wind there. So a lot coming out of the combine. Adds context. Matthew Golden and Isaiah Bond, really fast, really high GPS, really high 40s. And then you go look on tape and you don't see them catching a lot of deep balls. So you get that context, right? Quinn Ewers doesn't.
I wonder about Bond a little bit, and in as far as who's homie that went to the Chiefs in the first round.
Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, I wonder if that would affect color people's opinions, because I feel like Xavier Worthy was similar profile, but I feel like also Bond, I don't know, he was at Alabama, really big game player. I've always been kind of interested in him, and to see him testing like that was one thing that I was tracking. I was like, man, this guy might have thrown himself out of the Ravens' ability to select. And I guess we'll talk about how interested they're going to be in wide receivers, but this being kind of a deeper class, you mentioned Felton. I feel like when Maryland has one of these high profile sort of wide receiver prospects, I feel like they always get out of day one and they're always a reliable pick. I think about Obviously, DJ Moore was a day one pick, but there are other guys. You look back even to like Torrey with the Ravens. Like, could you snag one of those guys and continue to backfill the room a little bit with Aguilar potentially departing? And I don't know. It's just a wide receiver interesting to track, and these guys just getting faster and faster every year, I feel like.
Yeah, Maryland's done a good job getting their guys ready for the combine over the last few years here, locally, of course. Yeah, they haven't had a ton of receivers come out in the last few years. I think the last drafted receiver actually was DJ Moore. Before that, Stephon Diggs. Before that, Kevin Dorsey, Torrey Smith. So not a ton hitting the league lately. They've had some UDFAs, of course, some guys trickle in there, but a good group of wide receivers athletically. Didn't get a ton on some positions. Again, a lot of guys were kind of not doing the drills that make them look bad. So
is the combine is it jumping the shark a little bit? Is it?
It's just funny because what do they have to gain when you look at it? I mean, I don't think the combine jumping the shark. I do think it's imperative. And I think it's ridiculous to think that there's not context that you get added. And guys reshape their bodies. I mean, Shamar Stewart plays at 285. He goes to the Senior Bowl. Maybe they said lose some weight, see what you can do, a little more juiced up at 460 or at 260. So the training for the combine itself really can reshape what a player was asked to be. Like when you go to Iowa or when you go to a different school, Florida, they might ask you to shape your body composition one way versus another. They have a different scheme. They want you to play a different role. They want you to gain mass. They want you to gain flexibility, conversely. So giving these kids a chance to balance back out towards maybe what feedback they get from scouts, seeing how their biochemistry changes, how their physiology changes, I think is one of the most interesting things. And it's the work ethic too, right? It's the want. It's hey, you've got a huge job interview. Can you ace it? It's part of the equation. There's stupid parts of interviews in the corporate world that matter. Orlando Brown did all the drills and probably cost himself its money, but he wanted to compete. He's a competitor. He's a good player. He's had a good career. So I think there's something to show still with the kids that do it and the kids that want to make an effort. Mason Graham here in the comments. Mason Graham lost a lot of weight. Michigan also probably listed him heavier, probably a combination of things. I think he had an injury too, so he couldn't bulk up the right way. A couple of things there. So I think it's always interesting. It's an interesting thought experiment, and people love to make fun of it, and people also love to take it as gospel. And as with anything, it falls into the middle. It's just context, right? There's levels of gray to it. So
there's more to be gained, obviously, and this is not even a new thing, but there's more to be gained from the lower rounder, day 2 or early day 3 guys to go out there and try to pump their numbers up a little bit. And there's probably a lot more to lose for these early guys, especially as media scrutiny ramps up and these guys are getting more and more money as, the TV deals and all that kind of stuff, just continue to flow money into the NFL. It's just like, well, if I'm going to be a day 1 pick, even at the back half of the first round, it's probably not worth risking an injury here. And I mean, we've seen it happen. We saw it happen with Ojabo, and you could maybe argue that his career was never the same after what happened to him at the combine. Who knows what kind of player he would be. Obviously, we're hoping he could still turn into that player. I think at this point, it's kind of a lot to ask, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, for every one of those, there's also Darius Hayward-Bay, John Ross, or, it works both ways. You can go there and make yourself a lot of money too. I think that Nick Imamwari made himself a lot of money. I don't love the tape on him. I need to go rewatch now. I've got some added context. I didn't see someone that felt like it's ironic. He gets compared to Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton got knocked at the combine, even though it was really just the 40, his rolling 20. How fast are you once you get going, which is important in coverage, was amazing. It was the best in his class.
His story about as soon like when he was walking up to go and run the 40 and they had like the big Jumbotron and it was like player comparison, Cam Chancellor. And then he ran the 40. He's like, I turned around and the Jumbotron, it was like all of a sudden the player comparison is now Jeremy Chin, who, Jeremy Chin, good player, but that's just kind of funny the way that stocks can rise and plummet, even for a player like Hamilton, who at that point in the process was looked at as like a top 5 pick. And obviously it's still a wonder that he fell to the Ravens when he did, but I don't know, maybe the combine had something to do with that.
Yeah, but it's like you compare Nicky Mamori to him after testing, but Kyle Hamilton didn't quote unquote test well, even though he actually did. So I don't see Kyle Hamilton on tape when I watch him. I really don't see that. I see maybe a little bit more of a conservative player at times. So all these different things, all these different comparisons, all this information, it's fun. That's what I like to do, right? I like to filter sets of data and find thresholds and find common threads and see if there's any sort of causation that you can kind of pull. So I always love it. I love that aspect of it. I love trying to get production into it. You know, I was big into Jackson Smith and Jigba. I thought he would be a successful NFL receiver because his EPA, when targeted, fell into some thresholds that pretty much only productive NFL receivers had over time. So there's these different, you weigh everything and how much do you weigh it? And we heard Eric DaCosta, I can't remember what podcast he did. He went on with that dude who was like a practice squad tight end or something.
Yeah, the Penn State guy.
Yeah, he went on with the Penn State guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was like, yeah, you know, we have a model that uses Madden ratings. Like, how much do you want to weigh things? Do you want to weigh at 0.1%? Do you want to weigh at 10%? All these different things, all this information. So I think that's what makes it so much fun. And then there's people who are like, oh, underwear warrior, all that stuff. Sure. I mean, having a good combine doesn't mean you're going to be a good player, but I'll tell you what, when you go see the tackle out of Missouri, Armand Membao, go out and run fucking 4.9 at 330, and he's a fucking mauler, and his tape is beautiful, and he's younger. Like, I would, if I'm the Ravens, I'd trade up for that player. That was incredible. His athleticism there's questions, right? It's all layers of, all right, he's only 6'4.5", so is he tall enough to play tackle? Well, he's crazy athletic and he's mean and nasty. So his athleticism is probably going to enable him to compensate length or height or whatever you want it to be. So it flips back and forth that way. It's ways of gaining context about restrictions, limitations, tightness, flexibility, competitiveness, all these different things. Huge part of it's medicals. So we'll see. There's always one or two guys that, you know, fall super hard. Think of Nakobe Dean fell so hard because of medicals, ended up being a good player for the Eagles this year and early in his career, and then getting hurt again. So
Miles Jack,
Miles Jack, a lot of context to add, a lot of context to add. So that's why it's exciting. That's why it's fun. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't watch much of it on TV as opposed to how I normally do. It's been a little later the last couple of years, but just getting the data helps you answer questions, even from my chair where I'm not involved in anything, but it's like, okay, let me go reevaluate the tape with the data that I have.
And it's a lot of
team limitation.
It's stuff too that we're just like totally not privy to. Something that you talk about a lot is guys who are they going to be when they get this money in front of them, right? Like, who are they going to turn into? Like, and that's just something that we as fans can't gauge. These guys conducting the interviews can't really gauge that, but you've got to try and get an idea of who these guys are, get them in front of a whiteboard, try and, you know, do some private investigative work about what their habits are when they're, you know, on campus. And, you know, when you get to college, that's really your first, you're not actually an adult, but it's your first real whiff of freedom, and kind of how do you take on that responsibility and what do you do, you know, as a player? And given the fact that a lot of these bigger schools, like these guys, you know, it's an open secret that a lot of them are not even really going to classes or doing their coursework. It's, you know, other people handling that stuff for them. It's hard to get a gauge on that kind of thing. And that is really something that you just cannot tell. I mean, it goes all the way back to Tom Brady, who obviously had an infamously poor combine, but it's just about what's inside his head and what's inside his heart and like who he wants to be as a player. That's really what propelled him. So it's all just a big cosmic gumbo, as Eric Arditti would like to say, and something that we can't really totally be privy to. But you're right. I mean, like, if you're not going to use this data, then I don't know, you're doing yourself a disservice. And for all the people that are on Twitter, you know, trumpeting about that and, you know, decrying the underwear Olympics, like, you're doing yourself a disservice, because teams do take this stuff very seriously.
I get it. You know, does it matter alone? No, but it's like, if you're hiring a national VP of sales who you need to drive revenue and bring new business in, I mean, you wish it's basically like, all right, putting them on the field. The equivalent is like going back into their old CRM and actually seeing the work that they did. Like, you're able to get so much insight. It is a job interview. I would say drafting a quarterback, that's like, you know, hiring a new CEO. Like, you know, if you're an investor, it's serious. You want to get references. You want to see their previous body of work. You want to know, you know, everything about them. Do they have deep, dark secrets, fetishes, freaking weird shit that's going to surface so that it doesn't blow up in your face and destroy your company?
Did people come to his birthday party?
Right. Did people go to your birthday party? Yes or no? Yes or no? Were they there because they wanted to be, or there because you made them be? Right. So all those are serious to consider. And I think the NFL is different from other sports because it is such an explosive sport. The explosive athleticism that jumps correlate, man. They really do. It is going from a static position and exploding out of it dynamically. So I always put weight into those things. And you need to show me on tape that you're a technician if you don't have that explosiveness. It's a lot. Some of it does need to be God-given. So the interview part, all that stuff, I know a lot of players aren't doing the psychological testing anymore, but yeah, it gives you context and you need it, and it makes you more secure and sound in your evaluation so that you can be conclusive. Inconclusive scouting is tough, but it's also hard to be conclusive because where are they getting drafted? What is the role? What is the system? What is the talent around them? So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. So you got to fucking answer them. Answer as many as you can. Why not? You're not just throwing darts at a board unless you're maybe Howie Roseman and just kind of take the highest remaining player on Mel Kiper's big board.
He's like it's kind of like the meme with like the Wojak that's like deformed, and then the very smart Wojak on the other side of the bell curve, and then he's like the guy in the middle who's just like one person's arguing data, one person's arguing film, and Howie's just in the middle, like who's the buzzy like Twitter guy? I'm gonna take him.
Right, exactly. So lots of questions in here, lots we can talk about. We'll get more into the draft, still have some time, but. What do we got here? Biggest need in the draft for the Ravens? I don't know. Free agency hasn't happened yet, so I don't know. And the Ravens usually use free agency as a time to fill in the gap so that they can draft BPA. So we did see them take a corner. Was that a need? Probably, but I think they also really like Nate Wiggins a lot. So I think they lie to us a little more. Like they don't go full BPA, but I think they weigh, just taking the best player.
I think I've kind of come to start explaining it as best player available at a position of need. Or relative need. Like if you've got like a top 3 positions of need, and you're that probably does come into your analysis a little bit of weighing your player. And like they could even say that to themselves that they're not, but I think even subconsciously that's going to be there for you. Well,
I mean, of course they're not going to draft a quarterback, so we'll see. Free agency. Speaking of free agency, we wanted to talk about Ronnie Stanley, of course. It's rumored so the Chiefs go and trade Joe Thuney today to the Bears, and they franchise Trey Smith. A lot going on in the offensive line world. Ronnie Stanley. Now we have Pretty Ricky. Cole put it out there first. He is saying that Ronnie wants to stay. Ronnie wants to be here. That's what we had heard here was that Ronnie Stanley wants to be a Raven. He likes being here. Slick Rick at Slick Rick Scoops here. The Ravens and Ronnie Stanley have the framework of a deal. The framework of a deal is a very triggering phrase to Baltimore sports fans, right? The framework of a lease.
And for golf fans too, framework agreement that's now 3 years running with the PIF. That's a good point. There's definitely a little bit of wiggle room there, but I mean, just to get it, just to kind of throw it out there, we had been hearing about optimism about this taking place going back a couple of weeks at this point. So I don't know. Pretty Ricky back in the streets, by the way. I feel like is he on his 3rd account now? He's been there, and then he maybe got burned once, and I don't know. I trust him. I trust but verify him. But Cole also saying it does make me feel optimistic about this getting done.
So, yeah, I haven't heard anything different. Cole obviously talks to us, and that's what he said, that Ronnie wants to be here. So just haven't heard anything different from what Cole said. So we shall see. I think Stanley would have a nice market, but if he wants to remain here, the Ravens have gone through a lot with Stanley. He's also made a lot of money here. It also feels like he really took his injury and the inability to play good football to heart, and it hurt him as opposed to, and that's what you want to draft, right? The Ravens drafted him with the 6th overall fucking pick.
And you can tell he's a very
highest pick since what is that?
It was the highest
Jamal Lewis?
I think since, I think it was the highest since Mosley, I think since Mosley at the time.
Mosley was drafted 17.
Yeah.
I don't even.
You're talking about since, it would be 14 to 16. So Mosley was 17th, and then he was 6th. But yeah, he'd be the highest. Yeah, probably since Lewis, because they're just not picking in the top 10 very often. Suggs not there have been some top teners in there. He's one of the few. But yeah, you're right.
Second highest, Peter Boulware and Jonathan Ogden were both 4. So when Ogden, they traded back to 4, then they had 4 for Boulware. Then they had Jamal Lewis at 5. Ronnie Stanley, the 4th highest drafted Raven, and he fought through injury, right? He fought through injury. He stayed. He's taken it to heart, and wants to be a Raven, it sounds like. So that's what you want. Seems like he's bought into the culture, bought into the place, bought into the franchise, bought into the team, bought into the legacy. We'll see. Who knows? It's not a done deal yet, but all intents and purposes are that Stanley wants to be here. And then you see Pretty Ricky start popping it out. He's been wrong about some things, but he's been right about a lot too.
Yeah, he's Ronnie, cerebral guy. You can tell a little more sensitive. I think when we talk about our kind of fun, dumb jocks, I don't know if I'd necessarily put him into that group, but I feel like he is, for all intents and purposes, one of the guys. I think he does like it here. I think the Ravens, it is still a business. You don't want to get overly sentimental, but I think he probably does appreciate the fact that they stuck by him through all of that. They did, they did come to the table with him last year, and he took that pay cut to remain with the team. So that tells me there's willingness, and there already was willingness there. So if he can get kind of this moderate sort of agreement to keep him around, reward him for his efforts, reward, your own faith in him and bring him back for the remainder of his career, I think that would be a great story on all sides. And I'm looking forward to it. And with all that news about the Chiefs potentially pursuing him, that makes me want him even more. So
certainly. So then, the Ravens offensive line, a big point of contention over this season. They get into a solid place, and I still think they have some tinkering to do. But yeah, I guess we'll see more free agency just around the corner now. NFL tampering period is March 10th. So close. We're going to start seeing all those free agent deals come in Monday. Monday.
Well, that's when the tampering window opens, which is when they're allowed to tamper. So realistically, we're not going to see these deals signed until, the 12th or the 13th, because it's going to take a while to negotiate those contracts, right? They can't be talking until the 10th. So you're telling me that they're going to be signed on the 10th? Buddy, I got another thing coming for you, because the legal tampering window opens on the 10th. So
yeah, right.
It would just be a lot to negotiate all that within seconds of the league year opening, and then all of a sudden everybody's contracts are signed. That would just be, I don't know, that would be a little untoward in my opinion. But
speaking of tampering, DK Metcalf requests a trade. Ravens have been, I don't even know if it's the Ravens are linked to him. I feel like it might be the opposite. I feel like the Ravens might hate him.
Yeah.
I think that he came to Baltimore, and I remember he posted some Instagram story when he came to Baltimore for a visit, and they had him do a physical, and
he was not happy.
He posted like a middle finger in a doctor's office or something with the location Baltimore, Maryland, which he might have just been like, oh fuck, I don't feel like being at the doctor's office right now. And it might have just been that simple. Like, what was he, 20, 21 years old at the time? I'd be like, oh fuck, I'm just doing all these physicals. Could have been that. Maybe that has nothing to do with it, but he's just been connected to the Ravens. I don't know. I really wanted the Ravens to draft him. The first ever article I wrote for Baltimore Beatdown. Let me see if I can find the exact title of it.
My favorite about that too was there may or may not have been an Instagram model who I had a couple of classes with in college that he was in the comments of, and people were like, "Oh my God, DK to the Ravens." I was like, "Huh, that might be a little tangential there, guys." But
yeah, my first ever article, Catch Me If You Can, DK Metcalf has what the Ravens need. That was my debut article for Baltimore Beatdown back in the day. I said I was banging the table in summary for DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin, Jacoby Myers, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, Mecole Hardman, Anthony Ratliff-Williams, AJ Brown, and one Hakeem Butler I was a fan of. I thought he was a good second-round prospect there who has not turned out. A couple of those other guys there. A lot. I talked about, his 3-cone, all that stuff back in the day, which was hilarious. So goes back to the combine, focusing on what a player can do, focusing on what their ability is, and not trying to square peg round hole them. But Metcalf, I don't know. I would be sick. I mean, physical presence on the outside that everyone's wanted the Ravens to have, and the tight ends have that very much in ways. Mark Andrews, we'll see what happens with, but likely emerging and certainly a candidate to get extended in the near future. So, but it's just having that deep ball freaking beast. He's been inefficient in Seattle. His catch rates are low. It feels like there's a lot of miscommunication going on, but change of scenery can be good for players, man. It really can. And the person, DK Metcalf, I don't know, some crazy stories have come out of Seattle, him having crazy, weird Uber freaking orgy, whatever the hell was going on a couple years ago.
Whatever somebody wants to do in the comfort of their own home.
Exactly. So, who knows what the hell's going on? Give young guys millions of dollars. They're going to do crazy stuff. I know. Give me millions of dollars right now. I'll do crazy stuff. So I love everybody on their high horse pretending like, these 21-year-old kids are pieces of shit because they fall into the wrong crowd when they're given a $20 million fucking check. But
also, it never broke any laws as to what I understand. So
no laws were broken there. So DK, I mean, it's just the thought experiment. Like, I'm for any veteran impact player. Then it comes down to cap space, and it comes down to the compensation and all that stuff. I mean, I don't think you're trading a first for DK. I don't think he's been that elite tier receiver in that regard. I think you trade a second for him. I think a lot of teams, I think there's Jaguars or freaking a bunch of teams that would love to have the Chargers would love to have DK Metcalf. I'm sure a lot of what you want Quentin Johnston to be, DK Metcalf is. So I would love for the Ravens to add an impact veteran. They have 11 picks in this draft. Are you going to add an impact player in the late 20s? It's tough. It's tough to have a year one impact player, but it's the cost benefit analysis of having that player under control. But at this point in time, you have 10 other draft picks. You can kind of dial in maybe a little more in the later rounds. You got, first round pick would be not terrible, but I don't know about for DK Metcalf.
And you got chips too that could help make the cap thing a little bit more realistic because DK's 2025 cap hit is 31.8, 21 million in dead money. I don't know how much of that Seattle could absorb, but I mean, you've got chips. Like I see Thor Strong in the comments here. Do we see an Oway trade similar to Hollywood Brown where he knows he's moving, but we won't know till closer to draft day? That could be interesting. We had Oway tweeting the other day the peace sign emoji. And obviously, with the fifth-year option, that being pretty expensive with him, people throwing Mark Andrews' name out there. Mark, obviously pretty expensive and getting a little bit older. I don't think the Ravens would do that necessarily in relation just to his poor playoff performance that I think a lot of people are, stuck on, maybe wanting to move on because of that. I think they would just do it from the business case of like, could this land us DK Metcalf, who'd be replacing a lot of that production in the passing game? It'd be kind of a weird fit to me. I mean, like he seems like kind of that bigger ISO receiver that we've never really seen Lamar play with. I'd be interested to see how that would work out as a fit. I'm sure it would work out fairly well, but as far as, lighting up the stat sheet, I'm not so sure about that. I mean, you've got things in your pocket here, extending Marlon, potentially extending Lamar to open up some cash, as Lizard and Wiz, or Lizard Wiz is saying in the comments here. There are definitely possibilities to make it happen. I almost kind of wonder, like, do you just go for the veteran Band-Aid again? I mean, there are some decent options out there. I look at Devontae Adams, who, if he doesn't, for whatever reason, just decide to continue to follow Aaron Rodgers into the, seventh level of hell, in Oakland, Vegas or wherever Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing this year. I don't know. Maybe he could be an interesting vet option, but I don't know. Something tells me they will avoid DK and they will go that route. But I'm kind of with you where it's like, if you could go and get that impact player, I feel like we have this conversation every year and they kind of always tend to, I wouldn't say do a half measure of that, but they do like a 3/4 measure of that. Like I'd just be really interested to see them really try and go for that. And like, there's no guarantee that gets you past the divisional round or into the Super Bowl, but it'd be nice to see them just kind of say, screw it and like try it for 1 year. You've got Lamar under contract, just find a way to make it work. Probably won't set you back terribly in the era where the cap is not necessarily not real, but you can certainly maneuver it. And it just continues to skyrocket with the TV deals getting more and more expensive. And now Netflix is getting in the mix. There's going to be an influx of money there. I don't know. I'd say softly for it. I'm not all the way there. I've got kind of a windsock thing going on. I'm getting there, as Ray Allen would say.
You're edging?
Yeah, exactly.
You're getting there?
I'm getting there.
Well, yeah, the D-Hop, Lockett, I mean, all those things. Are the Ravens going to trade for DK? I'll give it a 1 in 32 chance. 1 in 31 chance. How about that? Don't know. Oway does make sense to trade, I think. But again, it's the horse in the cart. If you trade Oway, then who the fuck is playing outside linebacker? Is it insert name of rookie who happens to be available late 20s? Is it a veteran addition that you have in the works? It's the same logic with Ronnie Stanley of, okay, you let Ronnie Stanley go. Now what? Now what are you going to do? And it just opens up a can of worms of resources, of attention. The resource, when I say resources, you think money, you think draft picks. It's also the percentage of attention that a front office and a scouting department and a personnel department and a coaching staff have to dedicate to development, to scouting. So sometimes growing your team, you overpay, you extend, you overpay a little bit so that you can take the eye of Sauron and focus it on another area of improvement. You know, it's that resource as well, the time and the hit that the rest of your work takes from the time and attention you spend on it. So I think all of those are important to consider. What I'm saying in short is I need to know that there's a plan if you're going to trade Owe. I need to know that you're acquiring a veteran outside linebacker. I need to know you're signing Khalil Mack and you're drafting someone in the second or third round. And you have, another plan as well. Kyle Van Noy, older, Tavis Robinson, a very promising developing player who has a lot to work out as a pass rusher, but looks like a solid ass role player. He's at least kind of like that Malik Harrison for you, where he can be tough against the run in some regards. It's just interesting. Big can of worms there, but it has been a move. I think it's astute to point out. And I mean, maybe Mike McDonald wants him. Maybe DK Metcalf off Owe. That'll be a cute little thing on Twitter, I'm sure. Oh, well, we'll trade Owe and reunite him with Mike McDonald, and then we'll get DK Metcalf. That is very cute. That would work very cute in Madden, and everyone could shake hands and hug. And maybe that happens. I would guess probably not. Again, I'm just going to say probably not on anything. Unlikely to draft everyone, trade for everyone, all that shit. But I don't know. It's an interesting time. We'll see. We kind of are in wait and see with Ronnie Stanley, right? Like that's your big free agent move. If you sign Ronnie Stanley, that's your big free agent move. So plug a couple holes, find another Aguilar type receiver, draft one in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. Hopefully for the 100th year in a row, you can get a day 3 receiver to turn into some sort of productive NFL player. Probably not. It's just moving pieces, moving parts ahead of free agency. And I'm kind of talking in circles in ways, but a lot of considerations to be made right now. And we'll have some more definitive answers this time next week. At this point next week, most of the free agents will be signed.
Yeah, they will. So it's a lot going on. Deebo Samuel, obviously on the move to Washington. You mentioned Tooney going to the Bears. Teams are already starting to wheel and deal a little bit there, but obviously you're talking about teams with rookie quarterbacks and a lot more money to play with. So when you're a contender like this and you've got your quarterback on a second contract, much more difficult to make that picture come together. Speaking of the picture coming together, some comments at the Combine regarding the still ongoing Justin Tucker situation. Eric DeCosta and John Harbaugh both commenting on it. We don't have to get into the depth of their comments, but DeCosta said that the allegations made against him are serious and concerning, but they have indicated the team will wait before determining his future in Baltimore. Sounds like an independent investigation by the NFL has been underway, so hopefully we'll get some clarity on that soon, and we'll see what happens. That would affect the cap a little bit, as he does have, I believe, a $7.5 million hit for 2025. So, that still remains up in the air, and that will affect at least a couple of $1 million. You're muted. Still muted.
Fucking kickers, man.
Sure. I knew it was coming.
Kickers. Love kicker drama. My fucking favorite.
Yep.
Just whatever. This was also insane. Thor Strong here. What do you guys think about Mink going against EDC's wife? That was just, let's just drum up as much. The kickers getting in hot water for fucking trying to get jerked off at massage parlors.
Allegedly.
We're having political debates amongst employees and employees' wives. It's just, let's stir it all up. Let's just get it cooking on Twitter. Let's just get it all going.
I was thinking about this the other day. It feels like there's one of these off seasons like every couple of years. Like they just get it all done in one off season, and then it's just like it's quiet for a year or two, sometimes 3 if you're lucky. But you always get one of these every couple of years, and this is certainly one of them. Obviously, Judge talking about the Ben Cleveland DUI and divorce, alleging adultery, a very funny graphic that you sent to me. which, sad situation. My heart goes out to Ben Cleveland. Should not have been drinking and driving as a result of it. But that's tough. He is no longer on the Ravens. I don't believe he has a future here in Baltimore anymore. I don't think he was very well liked by the staff when he was here anyway. But there's just another one to throw out there. We've got Steve Smith, which
if there's ever been a Jacksonville Jaguar, it's Ben Cleveland. I'll tell you that much. Send him down to Duval. Let him.
You know what? I think he would love it down there. Maybe he could turn his career around. I hope that happens for his sake. Him with the Jaguars and Liam Cohen and Duval. I'm sure that would be great. Obviously, Steve Smith and Yeti Coolers getting a shout out there. What's going on here? What's up 2025? What the fuck is going on? It'd have been one thing if it was just Steve Smith being in the news for, speaking of adultery for a situation like that, but it had to be with one of the marching Ravens. And again, all of this is alleged, but I
honestly wish that I could somehow consume as much media. Like, I wish I could shout out Severance, to consume like all of the offseason news of every NFL team. I mean, Earl Thomas and his brother, the Lamar contract, just so much shit has gone on in the last 5 years that is just weird stuff, weird, unique situations. I don't know. It's just peculiar.
Well, in no world 15 years ago is Yeti Coolers somehow embroiled into a controversy of this kind of, low magnitude.
Tailor-made golf.
Yeah, tailor-made golf. My wife is being, I have been cuckolded by a Hall of Fame NFL receiver. What are you going to do about this? I demand to know. There's just no world where this is happening 15 years ago. This is just like all very, stuff that is happening behind closed doors. But no, the social media and all that, and the point has been belabored to death. But it has just opened up every single microbe, every single, dirty detail that we were not privy to 15 years ago, for better and for worse. And let me tell you, when it's something, I don't want to say harmless, but kind of funny like this, I'm okay with it. Other things I feel like we just don't need to know as much about.
Imagine going on your wife's phone, figuring out that she's hooking up with Steve Smith, and then just taking to Twitter. That's a one of one. There'll never be anything like that again.
He had to have just made the account and not known how Twitter worked, because we mentioned all the
on Facebook too.
Yeah, well, Facebook seems a little bit more his speed, if we're being honest, because he's tagging all these brands, and he's very clear. You never want to be the main character.
I'm sure Yeti Coolers saw.
They should send him a care package. I mean, the guy got railroaded. I feel bad for him.
They should send him a care package. They really should get him a set of irons and a nice big cooler for his cart.
Yeah, honestly, you know what, my
man, get this kid a fucking Happy Meal.
You're better off without her. Get yourself a nice care package from all these brands that you've inexplicably tagged, and go about your life. You'll come out the other side of this stronger.
What doesn't kill you gets you a Yeti cooler. So I don't know. We've gone off the rails here. 43 minutes in. We talked a little combine, talked a little trade, buzz chatter, OA, Metcalf. We talked a little DUI, divorce, adultery, a little double scarlet letter going on here in the Ravens interweb. Weird times, weird stuff. Free agency, man, I do not know. We'll break free agency down once it occurs. I don't know. There's just really not some glorious class of free agents here. Again, who's going to be available? The Jags are releasing Christian Kirk as of a couple hours ago as well, who got a huge bag a couple years ago, had a nice couple years in Jacksonville. Just a whole smorgasbord of cuts and signings about to occur still. So it's like, oh, which free agents do you want? I don't know. There's a million. We always do these futile exercises, and every now and again you'll hit on like a Justin Houston or something. You mentioned Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Javon Hargrave, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Amari Cooper. That would be a nice little ad there. Khalil Mack, Zach Martin retires.
Sam Hubbard retires.
Sam Hubbard also retires today. Just some weird stuff kicking up around town here. The Ravens were sniffing Chase Young not long ago. Remember, apparently a trade was about to go through, and then they flagged his medical. So they didn't want to do that, but on a minimum deal, I'm sure they wouldn't hate bringing him in. Charles Menahue, another free agent. So we'll see, man. There's a million of them. Hollywood Brown, a free agent, I believe. I don't think he's coming back, but we'll see. Zach Bond gets a big deal today. Robert Spillane, sneakily one of my favorite players to talk about being underrated, that I feel like everybody talks about him being underrated. Wouldn't hate that addition. Bring a little veteran linebacker in next to Rowe. Calm things down a little. There's thousands of them, but we'll be here to break them down next week. But I don't know. Again, if they sign Ronnie Stanley, we'll see. I expect that to be the big move. Justin Reed, his old coach is here. Yup, they just signed the Chiefs safeties coach to, I can't remember how many years it was, but signed him away from the Chiefs. Donald Alezio.
Yeah, that'd be a good kind of one-arm man replacement too. I feel like that would be.
Justin Reed's a badass, man. He runs the alley like no other. I'd love that signing, but I could see him getting a pretty big bag somewhere. Otherwise, depends what he wants. He got a ring. I don't know if he wants another ring. I don't know if he just wants a bag.
Yeah, I feel like he's like your perfect like Spags DB, and I love my Spags DBs.
Of course, I think DeMarcus Lawrence might be a free agent as well. Hassan Reddick. There's quietly some nice names. Matt Judon.
I was going to say, the further you get down this list here, the more I'm starting to like a lot of these names.
A lot of edges. A lot of edges here. Darrell Taylor, someone that I was a big fan of a couple years ago. Joe Tryon Shoyinka, free agent. He's had a nice little career. Wow, I didn't even realize.
That's our guy. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of you're starting to, backdoor sell me on this Oway for DK thing, and then grab one of these guys.
First, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention. 2025 NFL edge class. They have Jake edging on this episode here. So
I was not familiar with their game.
You were not. Yeah. So we shall see, my friends. We can break it down, talk, and all that stuff. Sure, but I kind of want to wait till after to be lame. Kind of want to just let it transpire, see who they're rumored to. We'll come back and do it again as things kick up here. Recording during a massive Terps basketball game. There's a lot of massive Terps basketball games coming down the schneid here.
Yeah, and the game the other night with the buzzer beater, it's just like Kevin Willard he's kind of broken my spirit a little bit. Like it just feels like another like ceiling. The ceiling is not the roof. The ceiling is like right above my head. I could reach up and touch it, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
I'm liking what I'm seeing. Michigan's a good point from Eric a week or two ago. Michigan State's the real motherfucker of the Big Ten. It feels like.
I think PFT's. Is Tom Izzo overrated? We're still really waiting to like get over the hill on that one. That's like a 10-year-old take that he's been incubating, and I don't know. I wanted to get on board with it, but I just feel like we might have crossed the Rubicon there.
There we go. Well, I think that about does it for us. We'll come back here. Thank you to all of our sponsors, and thank you to all of the listeners. We had a nice year getting ready for free agency, getting ready for getting ready for the draft, and that's exciting stuff. So we'll see the personnel changes, the retooling, the rekindling, and talk ourselves back into it again. So excited for that with you, my friend, and we'll keep the party going. Gunnar Henderson, likely to miss opening day. Just fun stuff.
Yeah, no, plenty of Orioles content coming up the pipeline very soon. Thank you for reminding me of that. Stay tuned for that. If you want to get your Birdland scoop, your Birdland fix, as it were, we'll be talking Gunner's health. We'll be talking this pitching staff that is just a total rogues gallery. But I'm really excited to watch for a lot of different reasons. I think there's some fun names in there. There's some legitimately good names in there. Watching the Mountain, hopefully coming back to form here. I think it's going to be exciting. So very excited for all of that. And you can find that all right here on the channel. You can find the channel on social media if you want to. On X at X52 Podcast. Same thing on Instagram. I am at Jake Louque. That's Louque. Spenny at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4. Eric with all the Orioles content at EDITTI22. Brian at Barstool Banks. Taylor at Taylor Smyth 10. Thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you again very soon. Very, very soon, I should say.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir. Trust. He's pretty big trust.
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir. Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.